So Mort, who's a game designer over at Riot, has put out a video on this controversy surrounding Palworld, and I kind of wanted to dive into this and listen to the talk because I've seen snippets of it popping up over the internet as different people have reacted to it, and I haven't actually had a chance to sit down and watch the whole video, so that's what we are about to sink our teeth into today. So without further ado, let me get to the beginning of this video and let's talk about
So,
Palworld.
in case this goes viral or whatever, and people
It
see
has
this
gone
video,
viral, sir.
if you don't know who I am, I'm Mort. I'm a game designer. I've been a game designer for 19 years, 11 and a half at Nintendo, 7.5 at Riot. So I've been doing this a while, and I've seen a lot of discourse online about Palworld and like what it means, and people being like, "Oh my God, AI and whatever," and freaking out. It's been pretty bad. And what's really, really disappointing is just how much misinformation is out there. I'm also, I don't know, I'm personally tired of the news cycle that is, I saw this trending tweet, let me go make a YouTube video about it.
Yep.
Even though the trending tweet came from somebody who has no idea what they're talking about.
Yep.
And then
Clickbait.
that gets perpetuated. And it's just
Yep.
really disappointing.
It is disappointing.
And so I wanted to take a second to talk about Palworld and what it means for the game industry and its success and things like that. And,
It's a
maybe
case
some ways
study.
you might consider feeling and things like that. So to start off with, one of the things you have to do is, those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. And I know I'm old, I'm 40, I'm gray haired, whatever, but a lot of people maybe are younger and maybe this is their first dive into it. So let's talk about making a video game, right? Let's say it's the year, I don't know, 1991, and you're going to make a
That was a
video
hot
game,
minute ago.
right? And so the first thing you do is you're going to pick like your engine, whether that be like a console or whatever, and you're gonna pick your engine here, and
Is he doing this all in
we're gonna
paint?
call it engine.
Wow.
Engine. Look at that big old text, and I'm gonna make it bigger here. Great. That's not big enough. Great. You got your engine. You got, you're gonna make some characters, some behavior, and then you're gonna make some levels and stuff like that. And you're gonna like a game is a bunch of different parts, right? It's like
Yeah.
levels, characters, behavior, enemies, stages, systems. You've got a bunch of parts into game design, maybe equipment, maybe items. It could be a bunch of various things. And a game is all of these different parts, right? And so we're just going to oversimplify it down to all of these different parts here. And again, this might be, level art. It might be level design. And I'm oversimplifying here, but there's going to be a bunch of different parts. Characters, system design.
Your questing
Let's do,
systems, your
before we do
questing, your
system design,
leveling.
let's say behaviors, you know, enemy, AI, blah, blah, blah. Well, let's do some systems design. And then maybe we do some like progression and some menus and things like that. And there you go. You got a video game. You worked on all these, right? And all of these are done by different people. Back in the day, maybe a team of like 8 or 10 could put it all together. Nowadays, if you want to go something big, like, I don't know, God of War Ragnarok, it gets a lot nuttier, right? And so all of these might have different employees working on different parts and things like that. Now, again, let's say it's 1991, and you've made a cool new game for the Super Nintendo called Street Fighter 2. You did it. You made Street Fighter 2. You released the game to the world. People are Hadoukening. It takes the world by storm. Good job. You made a video game. That's great, right? Well, the challenge here is like, cool, you've made a video game. What happens next? Well, your game sells millions, and what happens immediately? Everyone goes, I want some of that money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
And they make
Copy
another
paste.
fighting game.
They make a clone.
And for those of you that weren't around in like the 1990s, what happened was you ended up with stuff like this. And this is just an article titled 15 90s Street Fighter 2 ripoffs. Yes, 15. And there were more than 15, right? We got some body blows and some power moves and fighting spirit. Clearly inspired by fighting games. And some of you might be thinking, well, that's terrible. It's actually not. It's okay, right? Being inspired by another game is totally
By the way,
fine.
this is no different
As
than being
long as,
inspired.
and this is the important
Artists, I'm going
part,
to pause here
when
for a
you're
second. Artists get inspired by many. If I'm an author, I'm getting inspired by people I read. If I'm a comic book artist, I'm getting inspired by other comic book artists. If I'm a musician, I'm being inspired by other musicians. If I'm a painter, I'm being inspired by painters. Everyone draws inspiration from their favorite things in those genres and categories, and it's natural that we riff on those things because that's what we know and that's what we love. So we try to emulate that to create the things that we want to see. That's natural. There's nothing wrong with that.
you're making your own game called Power Spirit, you have to do all this work still. You got to
Yep.
pick your engine, do your level art, do your level design, do your characters. You might go, my character's name is Bayou and Jen, and they shoot Badookins. You know, if you're not, might not be the most imaginative, but you still had to kind of do the work yourself. And the reason that's okay is because innovation can happen if you're like willing to do it, right? Because something that does matter is all that matters is the end game is good. If the end game
Yes.
is good, that is what consumers care about, right?
Yes. It's the only thing
And there
consumers
was
care
one
about.
clone from this era that, really stood out.
Tekken, right? No,
Mortal
Mortal
Kombat,
Kombat.
right? Like now could you debate that it had differences, but it was clearly inspired by Street Fighter, but they took their own approach, they added their own hook, fatalities and killing and stuff like that. And it was great. It was great, right? Mortal Kombat is a fun game, inspired a series. It was good. Should we be mad that Mortal Kombat copied Street Fighter? Obviously not. Obviously not,
I
right?
love
Like,
his point.
that's
It's
a
a very
good
good
thing.
point.
Totally fine. I know there's this game called League of Legends that was inspired by, Dota. So it happens, right? This is happening all the time in the industry. All the time is that someone releases a game, other people are like, that game was popular, I want the money, and they make their own spin. And what matters is if you make a quality version, players will enjoy it, right? What matters is you did the work and you built the game. Now, second part here is building a game is a lot of work.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
continued
ton
to
of
be a
work.
lot of work.
As someone who spent 10
And
years, I
so,
don't have 19 years in the
should you
industry, but I
have to
do
do
have
this
10
every
years, and
time
it's
you
it's
make
it's
a
a
new
lot of
game?
work.
Because, man, imagine like you just shipped God of War, you've got all this stuff, and now you have to start over? That sounds terrible. There are
Mhm.
times where you can take shortcuts, and shortcuts are good. Let's talk about this game. I think this is a great game. Ocarina of Time, right?
It's a
Ocarina of
phenomenal
Time,
game.
such a good game. We got to play it. It was good. Life is good. No problem. Now, they just finished Ocarina of Time. What do? Do they start over, brand new engine? No, of course not. Instead, what they do is they take that engine, they rearrange some pieces. If we go back to our little diagram, maybe we get some new levels, some new level art, but we keep the
Keep the
characters, we
character
keep some of
art.
the behaviors,
Yep, yep.
maybe some new systems
Assassin's Creed.
design,
It's the
a
Assassin's
new
Creed model,
progression, keep the
right?
same menu, keep the
Yep,
same engine.
yep.
We shortcutted a lot of the work.
Assets get ported
And that's a
over.
good thing, right? It is, because we get Majora's Mask. Sweet. We get another game. That's great. Game devs should be taking these shortcuts, right? So that they can make more games to the products and make really cool games. And again, as long as the game is good,
No one
no
cares.
problem. No problem. Elden Ring. Elden Ring's another great example of this, right? Like, did Elden Ring get started from scratch? No,
No.
of course not. Because they had a lot of work and learnings from Bloodborne, and they had a lot of work and learnings from Dark Souls, right? Everything is sort of a level up, a learning, things like that. It's also why you often see a lot of game devs kind of make the same games over and over, like the same type, is because they have all their learnings.
We talked about this the other day in a different context, in the sense that someone was saying, look at what is the company that produces Eve Online? I can't remember the name of their company off the top of my head, CCP or something like that. And they were talking about how people were making the thread I was reading. People were making fun of that company for continually trying to produce an Eve Online first-person shooter, and people were like, you just need to stay in your wheelhouse. It's clearly not working for you. You've tried multiple iterations. It's not working. You need to just make Eve Online, and that's it. Stick to what you know. And then conversely, you have people who look at Bethesda, right? And they complain that Starfield wasn't enough of a iteration. It didn't move the genre forward. It didn't do anything that they hadn't already done in previous games. But on the one hand, when you have all the people who are like, if they ever make a single change to Call of Duty, the Call of Duty fans are up in arms because you've changed the things that made Call of Duty great. And if Bethesda does that, they get accused of changing things. But then on the flip side, you have people who accuse them of not innovating enough. So it's an interesting conversation where, yes, good companies who make, look at Call of Duty as an example. Look at the Assassin's Creed series. When a company, look at Bethesda. When a company makes games that sell lots of copies and are enjoyed by millions, there's no need for them to break the mold because they're already doing something that works. Are there going to be people who don't like and criticize? Sure, but there are still millions of people who do like it, and that's the only thing that matters at the end of the day.
They don't have to start this process over every single time, right? Having some of those shortcuts to help speed up game development, that's a good thing,
It's always a good thing,
right?
yeah.
Imagine trying to be, trying to jump into a different space. That's hard, right? So anything you can do to speed this up, this is a good thing. Also, for those who don't know, I'm the TFT lead designer, and there was this game called League of Legends, and we took the engine, we took a couple shortcuts because we had some of the character designs done and things like that. And guess what? We made team fight tactics. Cool. All of this is a good thing, right? Because all that matters at the end of the day is players are looking for good games, and you got to make good games. Development can be hard, and anything you can do to speed up that process to get more good games out there, usually a good thing. But here's where it gets a little tricky. There has been this concept because, again, what matters in the industry for a lot of devs, not all, but a lot, is you go where the money is, right? The second anything is popular, guess what? There are going to be clones, there are going to be copies, like
always
we
going to
talked
be
about with the
clones.
Street Fighter. And again, as long as you're making your own, totally fine. I get it. There's been a common strategy called reskins. A very common thing is like someone will, especially as things have gotten a little easier to develop with engines, where you release a game, say on mobile, like maybe you have a hero collector on mobile. You release it, it doesn't do well. You take it, you keep all the same stuff, the progression, the enemy AI, the behaviors, the menus, the engine, the level art, and like maybe you change a character, and that's it. And then you release it again. And you see if that does well. And you do this over and over and over in the mobile space. It's very common to see if you can be the one to get players' eyes and get that money. Because again, it circumvents 90% of the work to do that. And it's a
Just
very common
reskinning
thing.
it. Yeah.
How common is it? Well, if you go to Fiverr, I could pay $55 for somebody to reskin a game for me. I mean, it's a little gross. It's a little gross if that's all the effort you're willing to put in. But at the end of the day, what does matter is the end product, right? And so you're probably not going to get a high quality end product with a $55 reskin, but there are shortcuts. Now, this is kind of a quick history lesson, so you might be going, what does all of this have to do with Palworld? Okay. Now, everything from this point on is my speculation, okay? As a game developer, as someone who's been doing this for a while, I'm just going off what I see and what I understand and how games are made.
Makes sense.
I'm going to show you something. Palworld's previous game was called Craftopia. And I don't know about you guys, but this is the start of Craftopia. And I'm going to make this big for you. And this is how the game starts. You walk up these stairs. Some long stairs. No big deal. And when you reach the top of the stairs...
I've never played Craftopia, by the way.
Okay, what? I don't know why this went back. Here we go. This happens. You turn, you look at the character, you look at a vista. Huh, and the title appears. Huh. This is interesting. It's pretty similar. And then, oh look, there's a tent over there. Cool. Now, the reason I bring this up is because, again, if we go back to clones and you're doing all the work yourself, that makes sense. And if I said, hey, Mort, go make a game and copy Breath of the Wild, but you're doing it from scratch, to get that exact same vista, that exact same layout, that's actually pretty hard to do from scratch. But if you have the source,
Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand.
and you're reskinning,
Not
it's
so
pretty
hard.
damn easy. And what I'll say is, that looked pretty damn easy. So that's a little gross, you know? And so the fact that they can basically go, hey, thank you, you know, Nintendo or whoever for this. This is mine now. And I'm going to make some stuff on top of it. That's a little weird. That's a little weird. But here's the important
But that's
thing.
not really
What I will
what's
say
happened
is even
completely.
if they did that,
But
right? Let's say
okay,
I'm right for a second. And they're like,
he is
"Yoink,
theorizing.
this is mine now." The stuff they did on top of it is really good.
Yes.
It's really, really good, right? A game where you can run around and pick up a Firefox and shoot it as a flamethrower. It's fun. The fact that you can take your pals and like chop them up and capture humans and Pokeballs, it's fun. Palworld is a good game. The end result is a great game.
And that's the
It
thing that
is.
matters, yeah.
It's good. So if anyone's like, oh, is Palworld a bad game? No. It's really good.
It is a good game.
All the work they did in this section here, thumbs up. Just grade A, awesome work. All I'm saying is this part here, pretty sketch. And here's the crazy thing. Let's say again, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But let's say I'm right. What happens is we see Palworld's success. And again, game devs go where the money is.
Yep.
This will become
The new
the
normal.
action. This will become the norm.
Yep.
So this will become, hey, you know what the easiest way to make games is? It's don't do all this. It's find something else, take its section, and add a little on top. And that's what we're going to get a lot of. And I know there's a certain bald streamer that like had some really strong feelings about it. But I also know this bald streamer really didn't like back in the day where there was a $25 horse. And that $25 horse kind of snowballed into some pretty interesting parts of our industry, didn't it?
Yeah, I don't know who that
So,
is though, so I have no
I'm
frame
just
of
saying,
reference.
be really
Bald
careful when you're
streamers.
like, this is what I want, because the snowball might not be the best thing. If we're going to reward people of just going, yoink, I don't know, that scares the crap out of me. So that's it. And the thing is, I know there's one other component to this, which everyone's going to talk about, which is AI, right? Like using AI to cheat some of this. And the reality is AI is a tool. AI is a tool that can be used poorly and it can be used well. There are going to be ways to do it right, ways to do it wrong. But really, all of it comes back to if you take somebody else's work, that's where it gets a little gross, right? Because the people who did that work are incentivized to do that work for the rewards. If there are no longer rewards, you're not really incentivized to do this anymore. And so what you could end up with is a lot less interesting games in the future. So,
Well,
that's kinda
he's
my quick
theorizing
spiel.
about some stuff though.
But yeah, as far as evidence goes, there are things like this that really bother me here.
Okay,
Noise
tell me.
blast here for a second, but bear with me.
Okay.
Let me rewind a second.
Yeah.
Of course it's gone. Anyway, the sound when you find a new area is basically the same sound as you find a new area here. It's like the exact same sound. And again, stuff like that, really scary. So
It's food
there
for
you go.
thought.
I don't know. Making games, cool. Inspired by other games, cool. But in my opinion, you got to do the work yourself. That's the important part to me. And TLDR, Palworld's a pretty good game, but I don't know, man.
There's
There you go.
definitely some similarities between between their game and other games. But I would also argue that that's been going on for years. But like he said, I think his main takeaway here is if you do all the work and you're making a clone of a game, it's less icky than if you just take and copy paste someone else's thing. But I don't know that they necessarily can take somebody else's thing and put it in because they don't own the source code and they don't own the engine and all these other things. So they're still having to do the work. So I kind of lost him a little bit on some of that because he's basically saying like that Palworld took these elements from like Breath of the Wild and just directly ported them in. And there are aspects of that that look very similar, but there's also aspects of like Pokemon they've said and aspects there's all these different aspects, Valheim, so on and so forth, of things that we've seen in many other games. Um, at the end of the day, and I think that I know that there was a what is the podcast that Asmongold does? Steak and Eggs, I think is what it's called. I was watching them talk about one thing there. He made a comment about how no one cares at the end of the he's this Mort said it here multiple times in his video too. No one really cares if at the end of the day it's a good game. No one cares. And so that's the issue here is that it might feel a little icky to some people what's going on here, but at the end of the day, it is a very fun game. It's a very good game. It's a mishmash of different things, and if it works and it makes money, you know, the interesting thing is going to be to see whether or not the Pokemon Company and other companies are going to come after Palworld with lawsuits because of the similarities or not. Because there is sort of a precedent being set here in that I feel like we've gone from just clones to reskins and then going from reskins and we're just sort of how far can we push that envelope before we start getting pushback from the owners of these other games, because litigation is expensive and in many cases if you're not a huge multi-billion dollar company like Nintendo, you might not be willing to go after people for doing things like this. But he has some interesting points here. I don't agree with everything, but it was an interesting look at what's currently going on in the controversy surrounding Palworld and what it might mean for the next generation of reskins and clones of other games. Love to hear your thoughts. Drop them down below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Daily streams here and on Twitch. Lots of different things going on. Don't forget the Discord. You can pick up a copy of my latest fantasy novel as well. All the links are down there. I'll see everybody in the next one. Stay safe. Happy gaming, folks.